Symbols are one of those things in JavaScript which hasn't become mainstream, sometimes for a good reasons, but sometimes they could be used and they are very valuable. I had a talk at Node.js Meetup Berlin several months ago where I talked about this and where I talked about where symbols are good and where are bad, and especially where there are surprises while working with symbols. And trust me, there are many. So I will invite you to watch the talk where I will explain these things. A small thing, our video device didn't work correctly, so there's no video. It's only the screen and me talking. I hope it will still provide a good value for you. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Robin, and I came here to talk about symbols. And I guess you know you are JavaScript developers, so you are asking yourself, oh yeah, why does he talk about this? Like, I mean, symbols been in JavaScript for, what was that, 4 years? Since ECMAScript 2015, right? That's quite some time. Westboost is a great course about symbols. But I'm talking about how symbols can make things complicated. And I hit this because some things behave differently, and some things you believe about JavaScript, some beliefs are not true anymore if you take symbols into account. So this is like an overview of those things I found very strange, and I either hit or you can hit it. And I want you to like remember this talk, and then when you have a problem and you see somewhere word symbol, you can say, oh, Robin was talking about it. Maybe that's one of the things he was talking about. I don't like expect you to like use this, and maybe instead I would say don't use some of these. But I think it's interesting to know about, and I've been known to dig into language features and explore them. Let's do a quick recap of what symbols are. Symbols are a new type in JavaScript, as I said, since ECMAScript 6, ECMAScript 2015. New type means it is a new type of return thing. Like, it's another complication. You know, if you had something parsing this, it's a new thing there. And what is special about it is that it creates a very unique value. You cannot get the value anywhere else. Every time you call symbol, as you see, you have to call symbol. You cannot, it doesn't have a literal. You have to write symbol and then the parentheses and some other ways. But nothing will be comparable to this. Nothing is equal to this. It's a unique value. That's, if you know symbols from other languages, let's say Ruby, that's different, very different. Like every time you call symbol, you get a different one. First complication, I've been to some interviews and they ask me how many primitive values or types, well, did I say values, primitive types does JavaScript have? Somebody? How many? Let's go through that. Let's go through that, right? So the first one I always say, that's Boolean, right? It's computers, Boolean is there. Then we have numbers, string, and now it gets interesting, right? Object is not a primitive type. That's the other type, which is not primitive. It's undefined. It's null. And now it's symbols. 6. Yeah, it's 6. And I know people who know by heart that JavaScript has 5 types. And you go to interview, and then you ask them, how many primitive types does JavaScript? 5. Right? And now they have a complication because there's a 6th one. You have to take care of that. And if you want to get this answer fast, very soon, hopefully, maybe this year, they will be baked in another primitive type introduced in JavaScript. Yeah. Why are symbols even there? They are unique, as I said, and there was another change, and that is objects can now have keys, which are symbols. Yes. Like, if you go to a book which is older than 4 years, and you look at objects, they tell you, in object, the keys are always strings. And if you try to access with something else, it will be coerced to strings. So if you try to put like a key as an object, it will be coerced to this nice string, square brackets, object, object, right? That's not true anymore, because there's another thing it can be there. It's called symbols. So to get this terminology straight, objects have property keys, and a property key can be either be property name, means string, or property symbol, means symbol. Also, as you see, you cannot use the dot notation to access these things. You have to use the square brackets notation. It's very convenient that now we can use the square bracket notation while defining the object, as you see on line 5. Let's talk about how it compares to other primitives, and we will see. Oh yeah, I forgot to say one thing. Symbols are very logical step, and I don't want to make fun of JavaScript. It's not, I mean, I do understand because many people do, but I think it has its place. And because, I mean, if you extend the language with this one feature, you kind of have to add more things, and then can be complicated, but all of what I will show has a reason, and we can talk about that maybe if you have questions. So even this has reason. I mean, this one is easy because converting a symbol to Boolean is simple. The value is there or not, kind of, right? That's easy. With numbers, you cannot convert a symbol to number. But, and this is the complication, it throws a type error. So it doesn't convert it to not a number as it would for some other, like for objects, right? It throws an error. If your code doesn't do try-catch, this will cause an error. So it's not like your code might not be resilient anymore because there's this new thing which never was there that can break the code. Strings. And this is the funny thing, because sometimes you can convert it and sometimes not. And this is actually one of the things where I think it's logical, but it's very confusing. So how to remember that? If the conversion is explicit, meaning I say the word string in there, meaning I do string symbol or I do symbol dot toString call, it works. I get a string. It's not a useful one, usually. But I get it, right? If I try to do it implicit, meaning in a template string or in like adding it to another string, it will again throw a type error. Why is that? That's actually very good, and it's there to protect you. Because as I said, if you convert a symbol to a string, it's not useful. It's not supposed to be shown to user. It's not supposed to be shown anywhere. So if you know what you are doing, it will do it for you. But it will warn you if you are doing something weird. I kind of like that, but again, it's confusing. Complication number 3. Yeah, that's all the primitives it makes sense to convert it to. So now let's talk about the thing where I actually hit the problem, and that is object inspection. Like, object is some abstract thing in the memory, and you have different ways how to look at that object, how to inspect it, how to get values from the object. With this, I would like to talk also about a property called enumerable. So who here knows what enumerable property at least kind of a bit means? Yeah. Because enumerable is also a thing which has been part of JavaScript for some time, and it's a way how to hide properties inside objects. And now, as I said, like, symbols are used for a very similar thing. So the question is, how do these two things compare? And what's been a big mistake I made is that I thought that symbols are not enumerable. And that was even in MDM, Mozilla Developer Network. And I had to go there and change articles when I discovered that's not true. So fortunately, it's a wiki, so don't trust it too much. This is the object we will be working with in the next section, so it's important to understand it. What I do, I create two symbols, C and D. Yeah, great naming. The other one is using a different syntax. That's just so we know which one is which, but let's not, it can be just symbol. That doesn't matter. And then I create an object which has property name A with value 1 and symbol C with value 10. So far, so easy. And then on this object, we define a property string B with value 2 and enumerable false. If I define it like in an object literal, it's enumerable by default. I also add the fourth value, which is the symbol. I set the value to 20 and enumerable false. So basically, it's 1, 2, 10, 20. 10 and 20 is for symbols. Some consoles are smart. So for example, if I do that in Chrome, I see this. And I'm not sure if it's very much visible, but the B and I will call it D are a little bit grayed out. I'm not sure how you see that, right? It's there. So A and C, let's say, are full, and these are two. That's how Chrome distinguishes between enumerable and non-enumerable. It's very useful, and we will see that. But you don't kind of know that, right? When you try to access these values, it works as usual. You can still do that. You can, I mean, technically I could even write the square bracket notation on A and B. Everything works. It's an object. It has values. You can access them. Also, if you use this function called hasOwnProperty, it is there because it is an own property of that object. A little bit, you know, like, I know it makes sense, but I wouldn't expect that maybe on the first try, but that's still okay. When I said you can inspect an object, that means that very often, and I see that it's very useful, you go for object keys. And then you hit that. That's like the biggest one, right? We have an object which has 4 values, 4 properties, and object keys give us only 1, because object keys skips symbols and non-enumerable properties. And the same goes for object entries. If you depend on object keys to enumerate through object, this will break. Maybe not. I mean, depends. I don't know. What is your use case? But it can be a problem, because if you somehow process that, you don't process the symbols. Why is it confusing the most is that it says keys. And as I said, we still call it symbol key and let's say string key or name key. So even though if both are called keys, object key doesn't give you them. You can use the function getOwnProperty descriptors. Has anybody ever used that? Well, I actually haven't, so. Right, that's another way how you can inspect an object. And it gives you like descriptions of each property. But here we have a problem because you still cannot iterate through it, right? You still don't know what are the keys in this object because the keys are the same for both objects, the one you inspect and the data you receive. Small complication. I guess you are getting a little bit depressed, right? So let's do something nice. And that is, we do have very wordy but very useful functions there. And that is object getOwnProperty names and object getOwnProperty symbols. And these actually work as you would expect. There is no object.getMe all of the keys you have in this object. So you can concat these two. But you have a way. That's kind of nice. And I will show you a better way. No, better way. That's not. A way, exactly. A way. This is very interesting for me. Yes, object assign. Object assign, and the same goes for spread. I mean, I hope that all of us started to use spread because it's so useful. But non-enumerable properties are not spread. Right? That's the definition. But symbols are. And that's one of the things where you get symbols and you don't get enumerable. Which I think is okay when we get to the what are symbols used for. This kind of makes sense. But as I said, it's I'm never sure. I'm never sure if symbols are copied or not. Like because key symbols assign, I have to look into that, but they are. And then of course, JSON stringify gets rid of everything. It's basically the same as object keys. Like you only have the enumerable string properties. And I think that can be a small complication because you kind of don't know about that. But it's a small one, and I mean, you should be aware of that when you do something. So when you, for example, would like to, like I hear people who say, when you stringify object and then you parse it, you have a shallow copy. And I'm like, no, not with symbols. Yeah, I'm fun at parties. This is the way I was talking about. I didn't know this existed before I look into Mozilla Developer Network and I try to see how these things work. You can have reflect.ownKeys. You pass this object, you get all the keys in a nice array. Why I think it's not a great way is that it's not known, right? And it feels like hacking, you know. Reflect usually feels like, what are you doing? Like, is this a language feature? So maybe I would still use the two get own property keys. Oh no, get own property names, get own property symbols, and then maybe concat that if you need that. That's about inspecting objects, and that's where I actually hit a problem. Now the question that can arise is, why do we need symbols, and why some of these things work like that? And I think there are basically two properties, or like two use cases where symbols are nice. The first one is, as I said, is hidden properties, right? You put something to the object, but maybe you don't want it to be visible when you log it, or when you, I don't know, you can still use like maybe you put it in a table, like something like that. You want it to be hidden, maybe from the user, maybe from other developer. I'm not sure this is a great way, but it kind of works, right? And I think I actually use it like this because it is there, but it's not. Also, see one interesting thing. That's how you can use symbols in the structuring, but you have to name them. That's the only thing, but you can still use that. It's a use case, let's say. The other one, that's where symbols like excel. And that is when your object means data, but you need metadata. You need to have a way to inform JavaScript or libraries how they should handle this object, because it's somehow different. It's special. In the past, they used keys, string keys, like toString, which could somehow be invoked by JavaScript, or what is it? Value of, right? Yeah. That's these kind of things are meta. They don't talk about what is the data. They talk about how you should somehow work with this object. And as I said, it's an option for library developers, like people creating libraries. Maybe you'll be interested in that. I don't know. Maybe not. But it's a way how to say, this is an object, and this is how you handle that. And there are several. Actually, I was surprised by how many well-known symbols. Well-known symbol means it's global. It's known to the whole JavaScript universe. It's the same in the whole JavaScript universe, which, if you are into that nerdy stuff, is the only thing that's global across multiple realms. We can talk about that. And not to make things very much easy, so to complicate things again, people write them with a double @ symbol. So symbol.iterator is very often written as @iterator but it doesn't work, of course, in JavaScript. That's invalid syntax. I tried that when I first saw that. I put it there and it said, it doesn't exist. I was like, what is this? So just so you know. But I will use it so you get used to it as well. So these are some well-known symbols. The first one is probably the most used, I would say, or well-known. That's iterator. That means that this object, when invoked with some iterable interface, for example, you can spread this object in an array. And this function will tell it how it should work. That's awesome. You can have an object that's spreadable to an array. You also have this toPrimitive, which is the new way of using the value of. So value of is kind of the old one. toPrimitive is better one. It's used before value of. You get hints what kind of stuff you want. So for example, if you include this object in template literal, it will tell you, I would like to get string from this object. And you can define how to do that. When it's used in a computation or like a number constructor, it will tell you, can you give me a number? And you can decide that. It's pretty cool. Then there's a whole family of functions where you can use the string regex things, kind of, like match and I don't know what is the next, like some of them, right? But your object can respond to regex, which is interesting. And the last one I found very interesting, and that is concat spreadable? Because concat is this very special function in JavaScript, I mean array concat, that says, if it's an array, spread it, I don't know, that it doesn't use this language, but if it's not an array, use it as an object. If it's an array, inspect inside. And here you can tell on any object if that should happen on it. It says, I'm a unit when it comes to concating, or I am a set when it comes to concating. Again, is it useful? I don't But this is probably a good way how to deal with these kind of stuff. Also, it shows you why it's copied when you do object spread or object assign, because these kind of things should be part of the object. That if you change the property of like username, this should be concat spreadable. I mean, I probably took the least useful one, but I like that. And many other things I talked about, like all these rules and these exceptions and these complications, they are because it is nicer to work with these kind of use case. What I would like to end my presentation with is that I think that symbols are your friends. They want to be your friends. You can reject them as you do, but they want to be your friends. However, do not overuse them. It's a great power, comes great responsibility. It's up to you. So please, when you find symbols, don't be afraid, but don't put them everywhere. Maybe don't put it in your project. My name is Robin. I recently started recording YouTube videos, and I'm kind of excited about it. If you would like to check it out, it's YouTube/Pokorny. And this presentation has been created in a great tool I discovered 2 days ago. That's MDX DAG, and it's super easy to upload it to Netlify, so you can now see the same presentation I was showing. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something new. Let me know in the comments what was the most surprising complication for you, or what else did you find very interesting. Also, if you like this, please let me know by hitting the like button. I will appreciate that, and I know I should do more of things like this. Have a nice day, and remember, symbols can be your friends. See you in the next video.